The lack of access to theatre made me feel I was missing out on an important experience, and I just felt that this is something I ought to be able to enjoy, and I couldn't.
I'm Jeff Brown. Before I became deaf virtually overnight at the age of 17, I was a regular theatre goer.
I'm Peter Pullen, and along with Jeff Brown and Mervyn Williams, we are the founders of Stage Text. My earliest recollections of theatre going before captioning was probably the school play when I was 11, which was Hamlet. And I remember being able to more or less follow the story, not terribly well, but I couldn't follow the dialogue at all. The crunch came when I went to the Edinburgh Festival in my 20s with a couple of friends of mine, and we decided at the last minute to go to a farce. During the play, everybody around me was killing themselves with laughter. It was an extremely good production, but I sat stony-faced, not being able to understand a single word. Totally demoralising. Mervyn and I moved down to London, and London's the greatest city in the world for theatre. And so we thought somehow we're going to have to see what we can enjoy in this way.
My mother and I frequently visited one or other of the Liverpool theatres, mostly for musicals and Shakespeare. I came to love the theatre, and I felt the loss of access very deeply indeed.
Jeff was in touch with an organisation in New York called the League for the Hard of Hearing. They'd already been enjoying some theatre captioning on Broadway since 1997, thanks to two court reporters who used stenography to create the scripts. And they liked the idea of coming over to London for a sort of arts accessible tour.
Recently, an innovative new way of accessing a theatrical performance other than through an interpreter was piloted at the Barbican Theatre in London.
They'd managed to arrange with the Royal Shakespeare Company that they would caption a performance of Antony and Cleopatra at the Barbican.
Tonight I'm going to see a performance with a difference.
My reaction in seeing the caption for the first time was one of tremendous excitement. I was able to follow a Shakespearean play, and I'd never seen Antony and Cleopatra before.
This is the first time I've been to a Shakespearean production where I've never actually read the script beforehand.
I'm not only able to understand the plot, but I'm able to understand the dialogue and all the subtle nuances in the dialogue.
I have to give rather a lot of attention to the captions, but I wouldn't regard that as a disadvantage.
Following those performances, we had to make some decisions. What were we going to do? Did we have to wait for the Americans to come back? Or could we perhaps a theatre would take it up? Or could we do something ourselves? And the three of us decided to meet up with the Americans before they left and discuss how they did all this. So we were looking at all the things that we felt we'd need to put together in order to be able to demonstrate to more British theatres that captioning was a potential way to go to provide access. What we needed to do was to now form some kind of little organisation that would help us formalise what we were doing. And in May 2000, we incorporated Stage Text.
Stage Text is a registered charity founded by Jeff Brown, Mervyn Williams and myself. All three of us have a hearing loss. Our mission is to promote awareness of text generation systems such as captions or surtitles in theatre so that people with a hearing loss can have the same access to the performance as their hearing peers.
It's a really wonderful article in the Guardian Society, especially since it was published on Wednesday the 15th of November 2000, the day of the first caption performance of the Duchess of Malfi. I cannot believe when I think about it that everything came together in such a short time, from March when we saw the Americans' first performance to November when we did our own first performance with captions. The reaction of the deaf audience to that first caption show was absolutely wonderful. One deafened lady was in tears because she hadn't been able to go to the theatre since she became profoundly deaf 16 years previously. After the first performances of The Duchess of Malfi, we ended up in Stratford talking to the RSC, and they said to us, we would like you to caption more shows. We'd like you to caption shows in the Barbican in London and also shows in Stratford. And so we reacted very professionally and discussed the price and deliveries and all the rest of it, and then went out to the Dirty Dock, the local pub, and had a celebratory pint. And then we went down the street afterwards, arm in arm, singing There's No Business Like Show Business. We were really thrilled with the whole thing.
Ever wondered what life must be like for the 10 million people in our population with a hearing loss?
We were very lucky, I think, in being able to acquire a tape recording. And this tape recording was of someone reading an extract from a Dickens novel. But they'd very cleverly removed the top frequencies. So you could hear someone talking, but you couldn't understand what they were saying.
Sam understood all this, of course, so he said at once that he never could drink before supper unless a lady drank with him.
When we put the captions to that, it was amazing. You could hear the words, you could hear the accents, the nuances in the voice. It was astonishing how clear this was.
Sam understood all this, of course, so he said at once that he never could drink before supper unless a lady drank with him.
This was a very powerful tool. In fact, one theatre person described it as the best 30 seconds of deaf awareness training that they'd ever seen. We began to find the number of shows we were doing increasing dramatically. For example, in 2002, I think it was, we did something like 16 shows. In 2004, we were over 100. We were spending full time on this, as you might imagine. The fact that Mervyn and I were together all the time meant that we were talking about this 24 hours a day. Jeff was tending to talk to people in the Northwest, and he was also developing a website. Mervyn was particularly good at taking out the equipment, and he particularly was useful when it came to negotiating the box position. That was Mervyn's strength, that he could somehow twist the arms of the technicians to being able to put it a little bit lower, a little bit further into the set than they perhaps might have done. I was trying to concentrate on some of the boring stuff of trying to get the organisation into a shape where we could afford to do things. Jeff, Mervyn and I have been volunteers throughout, but you should never underestimate the determination of a focused group of individuals. We've now stepped down from the board, knowing that we leave behind a very successful organisation that will move on to greater future successes. As for the future of stage text and theatre captioning, sadly Jeff passed away in 2011, but I know he would be extremely proud, as Mervyn and I are, of the progress that stage text has made. Also, what's great is that Stage Text has now got into offering live subtitling for museums and galleries.
And then in the 18th century, there are more examples.
It was kind of fun to me just the other day when we went to a tour of the British Library, where all those years ago, Jeff, Mervyn and I had sat in the cafe debating the future. And we had a wonderful tour around the British Library with a handheld unit showing us exactly what the speaker was saying.
Theatre is about being involved in the development of the characters and being emotionally and intellectually attached. I feel deprived of this great experience.
Theatre now with captions and theatre before, all those years ago, before we had captions, it's like day and night. It means now that theatre is a part of our lives. We can look and see what caption shows are on and say, hey, we fancy that, let's book.